With the proposal to introduce a capital gains tax now well and truly dead, homeowners, investors and industry professionals are asking themselves, what's next? One Roof property commentator Ashley Church joins me now to answer that question, hopefully. Good morning, Ashley.
G'day, Hayley.
How much of an effect has this decision had in the property industry?
Yeah, as you say, it's so the last probably couple of months, all the dialogue and all the talk's been around this big issue of capital gains tax, which has kind of dominated the dialogue, and of course now that's dead. So it's worth just having a look to see what the landscape's going to look like over the next little while, and also into the future. And a few things I think we can probably surmise reasonably accurately. The first thing is that Governor Ardern has made this announcement to say that she's not going to introduce capital gains tax within her term of leadership. I think it's probably fair to say that capital gains tax as an idea is dead for a generation. She could be in office for, I guess, as little as another year and a half, or as long as another 6 or 7 years, but the Nats aren't particularly keen on this idea either. So you're talking 10, maybe 20 years before this is talked about again. So that's probably the first thing I think in terms of where this is likely to go. It's gone, and it's gone for a long time. The second thing is that although this is off the agenda, there are still some other tax things that will impact on property investors and to a lesser degree on homeowners. The first is the talk of ring fencing. In fact, it's not talk, it's going to happen. Ring fencing of tax losses, which is going to be introduced by the Finance Minister as legislation later this year, and it will be retrospective, which means it'll apply to this tax year. And in some respects, Hayley, that's probably got a more deleterious effect on people, at least in the short term, on investors in the short term, because it impacts on their annual cash flow. So that's coming.
Can I just ask you,
of course.
Who else this will affect? So it's going to affect investors, but will that have a flow-on effect to anybody else?
Those two, no, but there are some other things that are coming that may. For example, at the moment there's the introduction of the Healthy Homes Act, which doesn't come into effect until 2021. And that's actually not a bad piece of legislation, because that requires rental properties in the first instance to be brought up to minimum standards of heating, insulation, ventilation and moisture control. Now, at the moment, again, that's only for investment properties, and it's a good thing because it means that those properties will be brought up to minimum standards that they all comply with. Possible that actually might be applied to private residences at some stage in the future. There's no talk of that at the moment, but that's something we need to keep an eye on, because there is talk about whether even people living in their own homes should be living in properties that have got some minimum standards in terms of the health benefits and merits of those properties. But the other one I did want to talk about, Hayley, was one of the things that Jacinda Ardern talked about when she talked about scrapping capital gains tax was this idea of other measures to deal with particularly land banking. Now, that's really interesting because there are a limited number of things that they can do without simply introducing another form of capital gains tax. This is this idea that people are banking land, not using it, and therefore it's not being available for development for new houses, and therefore it's a blight on the property market, particularly in Auckland and in areas where there's high density, not so much in other parts of the country where land isn't an issue. But the issue with that is how they would actually do that without being another form of capital gains tax. What you could do is you could actually rate that land. You could say, if you're not going to use undeveloped land, you're not going to build on it, then we're going to put much higher rates on it, much stronger. But if you did that, that's actually a council measure, not a government measure. So probably need to watch this space, because that applies not just to property investors, but essentially to anybody who's got undeveloped land available, to see what the government's likely to do in that space.
So if they applied a tax on people who are banking land at a local or a national level, what effect is that going to have on the industry? Is that a good thing?
Probably it is a good thing. I think at the moment there's an issue, depending on how far they go with it. So if it's people that have developed large portions of land as developers and then are just sitting on that on the expectation that it's going to increase in value, and by doing that they're not making that available for development, then there's an argument that says that's not an effective and good use of that land, and we should do something to bring forward its use. If they took it as far as saying, hey, look, if you're sitting on a 2,000 square metre section and you haven't subdivided it, and therefore that's not a very good use of that land either, that would be going a step too far. So it's going to be interesting to see how far they take that definition of what constitutes undeveloped land and what's simply a large section.
So the question that everybody wants answered then is, how is all of this going to affect house prices? So
at the moment it won't. The house prices are flat at the moment, and they're going to stay flat for another 2 or 3 years, as you and I have talked about before. But for those who hang in there, the good news is that they will come right again once the cycle starts to pick up again, and I've been talking sort of 2021, 2022, so there will be light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a little bit of a wait and biting of fingernails in the meantime.
For a first home buyer, is it time to jump in now, or is it good to wait for those 2 to 3 years of flattening prices?
That's a really good question. So I would argue that now's a good time because basically any time during the flat period's a good time, and also because I might be wrong. It might pick up earlier. so while it's flat, make hay while the sun shines. So I'd be saying to people, hey, look, prices are about as flat as they're going to get at the moment. This is your opportunity, but what it does do is it does give you the benefit of a little bit of time to actually do some proper due diligence and look for a good deal.
Thank you very much
Hayley,
for your time.
can I just finish, Hayley, by saying congratulations to Jack on his new role. He's been a fantastic addition to Breakfast TV over the last 2 or 3 years. Big loss. I know that you're going to look after it well, though, with your new presenter. But congratulations, Jack, and look forward to seeing you on your new show in the next couple of weeks.
Ngā mihi kia koe. Thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate it. I'll miss hearing from you regularly. But sure. I know that you will consistently tell us it's a good time to buy, no matter the conditions.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ashley Church in Wellington.